Hello everybody, I'm Dan. Welcome to my Java tutorial series. Throughout my tutorials I will teach you Java using just Notepad and the command prompt. The order in which my tutorials are organized on both my website at javacjava.com and my YouTube playlist is designed to maximize learning by building on concepts from prior tutorials. This tutorial is about nested loops. I'm going to go ahead and open up the web browser to my website here at javacjava.com. Click Begin, and then scroll down through the Java tutorials to nested loops. So in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to create nested loops using the three Java looping statements: for, while, and do while. Nested loops consist of inner loops that are nested inside of outer loops. The program will display all the letters of the alphabet 5 times using each one of the looping statement types. Okay, let's jump right down and dive into the code here. Let's highlight this, hit Control-C, copy, or right click and select copy. Go ahead and move the browser off screen here. Click on Start Search, type in CMD. If you're running Windows 7 or earlier, you can go to Start Run, type in CMD. I'm going to type in Java C here. When the command prompt comes up, you should see all this stuff scroll by. If you don't, go ahead and watch my tutorial on installing the Java Development Kit. You want to make sure you get that installed properly before you continue on with the tutorials. Type in CLS to clear the screen, CD space /. CD is short for change directory, and / tells it to go to the root. Type in MD Java, which is make directory Java. Then we'll type in CD Java, and that will, I already had that Java folder, but if you didn't, it would go ahead and create it for you. CD is change directory. We'll change directories to that. I'm going to make another directory, and I'm just going to call this nested loops. Change directories to that, and then Notepad, nested loops.java. Nested loops.java is going to be the name of our source code file. All right, so we got our class declaration of nested loops, our main method entry point right here. And then we've got a nested for loop, a nested while loop section, and a nested do while loop section. So on the nested for loop, all this is going to be pretty simple here. You've got your outer loop, and then you've got your inner loop right here. So basically in the outer loop, we've got a variable initialized I is less than 5, and I++ on the iterations. So this will iterate through 5 times, right? So as we start to iterate through the first time, we're just going to initialize this upper A variable, char data type, equal to uppercase A character literal. Now we'll put in another for, the inner for statement here, which is our nested for loop, right? And we're going to have an initialize the variable A equal to 0, and it's going to loop through 26 times on this iteration for this for loop. It's simply going to display the value of the char data type upper A, and that's going to add 1 to upper A, so that'll be B on the next iteration through, right? And then once this inner for loop will just keep looping and keep looping and keep looping 26 times until this conditional test here is no longer equal to true. Then it'll break out and then move on to the next line, okay? Once it does that, it prints out a new line, and then our outer for loop regains control again, and it says, okay, now we're going through our second iteration. We can redeclare this again, right? That's perfectly legal. And this char upper A is only in the scope of this the for loop body right here, right? And then it'll come through and it'll display it, loop through another 26 times, building our alphabet. And notice this is just the print function, print method right here, right? Not the print lines. So these will keep tacking on A, B, C all the way through Z, and then it'll finally do a print line. Okay. So once this has iterated through 5 times on the outer loop, and then 5 times 26 times on the inner loop, right? It will then break out of the outer loop and just print out a new line, and then display the next string literal nested while loop. So for the while loop, there's several different ways we could do this. We could do something like while true, and then we could, do statements and set it equal to, and do like a break or something like that. But I chose not to do a break in this tutorial because I'm going to be doing some additional training, teaching on the break keyword in future tutorials here. So this time I just chose to create a variable x and initialize it to 0. So while x is less than 5, right, this will loop through. You can see the last statement here in this iteration of this loop will add 1 to x, right? Okay. The first statement here, we're just basically declaring the upper A variable char data type equal to string literal uppercase A. And this upper A has absolutely nothing to do with that one. That one is gone now. It's completely out of scope. The scope of that upper A is inside of these curly braces here. So if you remember from my scope tutorial on that. And then we're initializing a temporary variable y to do the exact same thing on our inner while loop, right? So while y is less than 26, we're going to go ahead and call the print method here, the value of the upper A char data type variable there. Then we're going to add 1 to it, and then we're going to add 1 to y, right? And then this will loop through basically this nested loop here. The inner loop will loop through 26 times, displaying all the letters of the alphabet. Once it's done with that, it'll break out and then program the outer while loop, will take over execution and execute that statement, this statement, come back up here, right? And do this and do that, and then this will loop through 26 times again, and then it'll resume here and so on and so forth there, right? And now the last one I want to talk about is the nested do while loop. And so basically, the do while loop is my least favorite of the looping types because it'll always iterate through all of the statements inside of the code block at least once, even if this were to evaluate to false. So basically, I'm initializing a variable c equal to 0, right? And then when we come down here, the next thing that happens is same thing here. I'm initializing an upper A variable of char data type equal to string literal of uppercase A. And this one belongs in here, right? That one up here in the while is gone, so is the other one up there. Perfectly legal to keep doing stuff like this here as long as it's inside of its own local code block there, right? And then I'm initializing a variable D of int data type equal to 0, right? And now it comes down here to this nested do statement, the inner do statement, and it goes ahead and prints out the value of the upper A variable, then it adds 1 to it, then it adds 1 to D, right? And then it finally comes down here to the while statement and says, okay, is 1 less than 26 because that's the current value of D. Okay, it is. All right, go ahead and come back up here to the code block and repeat it, and then we'll check again, repeat it, check again. So this will basically loop through 26 times, display that, and then once D becomes 26, then this will return false and it'll break out and return to and then we'll execute the next statement here, right, which will print a line, and then we'll add C down here, right, and then the next line that'll evaluate is next statement that'll evaluate is basically this expression right here as well. C is less than 5. C would be 1 at that point there, right? It says, oh, okay, that's still true. Let's come back up to the top of the code block, execute everything, and then we'll see if it's still true down here, right? Well, so this will basically loop through 5 times, and once C does become 5, then it'll go ahead and break out and continue on right here and execute this statement. So let's go ahead and save this, and based on that, we should just basically see the letters A through Z displayed on 5 lines, and then say nested for loop, 5 lines of alphabets, nested while loop, 5 lines of alphabets, nested do while loop, 5 lines of the alphabet. Let's go ahead and save this, compile it, and run it. Let's clear our screen, Java C. Java nested. Let's strip off that. Okay, nested for loop, 5 lines of alphabet. So all in all, pretty straightforward there. I'm going to go ahead and just close out of this, close out of that, and give you some final thoughts. Nested loops are used quite often. They're extremely useful for reading and writing multi-dimensional arrays. Now don't worry about multi-dimensional arrays just yet. I've only covered single-dimensional arrays so far. But I will be covering multi-dimensional arrays in the near future. Thanks. That concludes this tutorial. Thanks for watching.